Okay, so we're going to start off with Jacob. Why don't you come up here? We support a ministry called Care Medical now. It used to be called Pregnancy Choices, and they're up in Mount Vernon, and so we're going to have that ministry highlighted right now.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Jacob Tercero, and I'm from Care Medical Center up in Mount Vernon. Care Medical Center, as many of you know, or maybe don't know, used to be Pregnancy Choices. And we were Pregnancy Choices for a long time, and we've had a long, fruitful several decades of ministry. Recently, we celebrated our 30th anniversary, actually. So praise the Lord for 30 years of faithfulness to us and to our ministry, and just everything that He's doing through this ministry. My role at the ministry is a little bit boring. I'm purely on the administrative side of things. I do things like I write reports, and I do bills, and I do all of the paperwork and stuff that needs to happen just to keep any office running. But I enjoy it because I'm not a nurse, and I'm not a social worker, and I'm not a woman, so I can't minister to these girls that are in crisis coming into our center in the way that they need. But like I said, I can write reports, I can do bills, I can do stuff like that so that our nurses and our social workers and our mentors and our counselors can do everything that they need to do for just ministering to them and showing them the value of the life that is in them and the blessing of the Lord and His goodness in the gospel. So what is Care Medical Center? Care Medical Center serves the Skagit Valley as a reproductive health center and family support services center. What does that mean? It's sort of technical language. It means that basically we provide reproductive health services to women who need it. Things like ultrasounds and pregnancy tests. Those were the two historical main medical services that crisis pregnancy centers have offered. But in a world where we're recognizing that so much of the impetus, so much of the underlying motivations that drive women to consider an abortion ultimately are in their lack of knowledge of the gospel and of the value of the life in them, but also there's these social issues. There's these health issues. There's these issues of life and bills, and so we exist to provide them with the services that they need. We minister to the community in providing health care, supporting them when they're pregnant, in their need. And so we're going to take a look at what does that look like. So like I said, we used to be Pregnancy Choices. We were Pregnancy Choices for a long time. Now we're Care Medical Center. And what does CARE stand for? It's an acronym. Christ-centered, life-affirming, responsible, and ethical. Because ultimately, at the center of our ministry, we want to be the person of Jesus. We want His hope, His life, His love. It's also just reflecting the fact that, again, our services extend beyond just explicitly pregnancy-related services. We offer services now such as STI exams and STD exams, well woman exams. And also we offer services to health services and social services to men too. So our services are not exclusive to women, nor just to pregnancy-related services. So what do? There's basically three primary areas of our ministry. We have our medical clinic, we have our Thriving Heart program, and then we have Future Impact. Our medical clinic is the center of our ministry. It's probably the most important element in terms of being right there with a woman who finds herself pregnant and unsure if she can do this, and saying, here we are, we can help you, and here's what we can do. And it is so amazing every day to see our incredible nurses working just full of such love, full of just such life and such a joy and compassion too. For those who are hurting, unsure, they need to approach their patients recognizing that there's something that's sort of making them scared. in the mind of a woman who's seeking an abortion, abortion is not a problem. Abortion is a solution to some sort of problem. Whether it's her poverty, whether it's her insecurity, whether it's the abusive relationship that she's trapped in, whether it's anything else that the enemy is using in her life to make her consider this. And so our nurses are uniquely positioned to speak into their lives in a moment of incredible crisis. Last year, we started offering STI and STD tests. That's very exciting because it's sort of funny to talk about on a Sunday morning, but STIs are on the rise across the nation. And that is a unique space that we have to minister to the community. The opportunity that we have to provide women's wellness exams. Because ultimately, again, like I said, so many of our patients are low income. So many of them come from great need. And so any opportunity that we have to speak into their lives is an opportunity for the Lord to work. And then what happens after they come in? What happens after they have their ultrasound, after they have their pregnancy test, after they have their STI test that comes back positive, and they ask, well, what do I need to do now? That's where our Thriving Heart program is relevant. Thriving Heart is a program that we use to connect to the women. It's almost sort of like evangelism discipleship. And that exists in a couple of ways. It's firstly through mentoring, one-on-one mentoring. Women who are older, wiser, more mature, more experienced, coming along, that Titus 2, older women teaching the younger women, coming alongside these young women and talking with them, working with them, praying with them, encouraging them, and showing them what it looks like to live a healthy life and hopefully also a God-fearing life. So much of the issues that the women in our center face is also because they lack community. And so Thriving Heart provides these women with a center of community, mom support group, Bible study. And in that connection, in that opportunity that they have to support one another, there are so many opportunities that the Lord uses to these women to lift one another up and just walk into health and healing. And then there's also, of course, we have a boutique, and that addresses the material need of the patients that we have in our center. And that offers them things like clothes, diapers, wipes, household goods, and more. Now, the third part of our program is Future Impact, and Future Impact's sort of under construction right now. Historically, what Future Impact did was we would go into the schools, and that was our youth education program. So we'd go into the schools and we'd teach them about relationship health, reproductive health, encouraging them to live and walk in God-honoring ways when it comes to their relationships and whatnot. But the last 4 years have really created some barriers just in terms of what it looks like for us to continue to minister to the young people in the Skagit Valley. And so we're kind of taking a step back and thinking, okay, how does the Lord want to use this program going forward? What are ways that he can, just grow this, change this? What does it look like for us to address the needs of the young people in education so that, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, they aren't in the same issues that the women who are coming into our center are in. So that's something that you can be praying for us about. I'll go ahead and start sharing prayer requests, that the Lord would give us wisdom in terms of what it looks like for the future of this program. So who do we serve? Our patients and clients, they reflect the cultural and linguistic diversity of the Skagit Valley, which is very exciting for me because by education, actually, I'm a linguist. So I love languages, and it's super exciting to work in a place where we hear English and Spanish and also indigenous Central American languages like Mixteco and Triqui. The majority of our patients and clients are Latin American, and a significant portion are significantly Spanish speaking, which is both a unique opportunity and a burden because there are certain cultural and community barriers that we face in our ability to connect with that community and also in our ability to provide them the services that they need. My last name is Tercero. I am Hispanic, but I am not from the same community and background as they are. And so that creates just questions in terms of what does it look like for us to better connect with this community. Many of our patients and clients are low income. They're women without strong community or a safety net. And women without a strong community or safety net are more likely to be vulnerable to abortion. So we have the opportunity then to step in and fill that need and empower them to embrace motherhood with confidence and security, all while ultimately pointing them to the hope of the gospel as an answer to all of the questions for their life. So why do we serve? Well, first, it's for the sake of the gospel. Like I said, what's the first C stand for in Care Medical? Christ-centered. Because ultimately, we know whatever choice that woman makes after she comes into our center, there is also eternal life at stake here. We know that whether she chooses to choose motherhood or make another choice, we know that her soul is still at stake. And so we want her to know Jesus. We want her to know Christ so that that same life she can then show to her children and her family and her community and redeem our whole community. We serve for the sake of the unborn. You know, we're supposed to call for justice for those who can't speak for themselves, to I'm thinking of in Isaiah, plead the widow's cause, plead the orphan's cause. Those who cannot speak for themselves, we are called to speak for. The unborn cannot speak for themselves. And so our nurses are advocates of sorts for them. And we do it for the sake of our neighbor. We do it for the sake of our community, for the health of our community. Because community health is so important to just the goals that we have as a center to see health. Let me back up for a second. I suppose health in the sense of spiritual health, but then also physical health, that we might show the love of Christ to our neighbors. So how can you be a part of it? You can pray. The prayers of the righteous are powerful and effective, James writes to us. You can volunteer. You can serve as a mentor at the front desk or as a nurse. We are in particular need, like I mentioned earlier, for Spanish-speaking mentors, for Spanish-speaking volunteers, to be able to connect with just that segment of our community. You can partner financially. There are always needs. And you can also just spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell those who are looking for opportunities to serve, and look for those who might need our services. Maybe it's your neighbor, maybe it's your student, maybe it's a family member. They might need our services. Encourage them to come to us. So that's all for me today, and just I'm really glad for the opportunity I've had to come and share with you all about our ministry and a little bit about what I do and what we do and why we do it and who we serve. So thank you very much.
The next, we're going to turn the mic over. Marilyn, were you to say something, or just roll the film? Okay, we have a video on caring hands. A number of our ladies in the church do that, and Care Medical gets the result of that with a number of quilts every month and some baby sign things as well, not just quilts and so forth. So let's see that video now.
This is the batting, and this is the top. And those will be put together. And then it all comes out here and together. And she pins it together so that it'll look like this. See, it's all pretty together. It's all put together. Then we put it on this machine. And do quilting on it, and it will end up looking like this.
Oh, with the stitching.
It holds all the layers together. And then somebody trims it. And This is the batting, and this is the top. And those will be put together.
Oh, that's pretty.
And then it all comes out here and Linda puts it together. And she pins it together so that it will look like this. See, it's all pinned together.
Oh, I see.
It's all pinned together. Then we put it on this machine and do quilting on it. And it'll end up looking like this.
Oh, with the stitching.
The
that's-
stitching on it, it holds all the layers together.
Yeah, yeah.
And then somebody trims it, and then this gets turned over like this and stitched down, and it's finished.
And then labels.
Nice.
And then a label is put on it. Where's the labels?
And are they all about the same size?
I was gonna say, I just cut them out and laid them out.
They're, all the quilts, you mean?
Yeah, are they
Baby
all-
quilts, that are small ones, like this size.
Okay.
And then we do larger ones for the Domestic Violence Center you can take a picture of that too if you want. In Everett. And they get about 15 or 16 a month.
A month?
A month.
Oh my goodness.
The baby quilts go up to the,
Pregnancy.
Care Center in Mount Vernon.
Pregnancy
It used to
Care
be-
Center?
Yeah, but it's called Care now.
Oh, right.
And then in here, lady has started making bags for the shelter, because they need something, a way to store their things. We have the fidget quilts. These are teddy bear quilts. Every child at the shelter is given a teddy bear, and this is a quilt for their teddy bear.
Oh.
We have receiving blankets,
Oh, yeah.
receiving blankets for newborns.
And how many of all of these do you give out a month, let's say?
A month?
There's something there.
December 12th, we gave out 14 shelter quilts, 5 teddy bear quilts, and then it varies. In November, we gave out 15 shelter quilts, 13 teddy bear quilts, 10 fidget quilts, and it's all ready to be done again. In Karen, Mount Vernon got in October, and we're ready to do them again. They got 15 receiving blankets, 14 Burt Claws, burpees, and 20 baby quilts for 79 total items.
A lot.
I can never put those back together. I
I
have to
understand.
lay them out a certain way.
I thought I did.
I do the same thing on my big machine.
Oh,
You just, it's by how you move it.
Bring the thread up.
And you just go however you want
Uh-huh,
to?
yep.
Yeah.
Called free motion.
Like freehand, yeah.
Yes, free motion
Yeah,
quilting.
yeah.
Yeah, come and watch our clothes, because it's really fascinating.
Just meander around, do whatever you want. You can make loops. Make loops. And that's kind of the way it is.
You know, about quilting, the
Yeah.
whole deal, you know, from beginning to end.
Plus, it's the purpose in mind
Yes,
of who you're doing this for.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the tools that we use?
Oh,
This is a
that?
rolling knife.
Okay.
And you use these and a ruler, and you trim off what you want done. Or you cut your pieces, or you cut your backs, or you cut your bindings.
It all cuts you sometimes.
Yeah, it also cuts you.
Oh, and that's
Cut your finger.
hence all of the Band-Aids, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Band-Aids are handy.
Yes, we have a whole drawer.
So that's,
I'm sure we all keep them in our drawer, in our sewing rooms too at home for emergencies.
The nice thing is we can have fun together and have good friends and be serving the Lord at the same time.
oh, sure.
So now you know how quilts are made, and you can volunteer, right? So maybe there'll be a few more, Marilyn. It meets on Tuesdays, right? Yeah, 10 o'clock-ish? When do the rest of the people show up? Show up anytime you want. Okay, very good. One of the other things that, Stephen Dewey Pastor Stephen had a lot of work in visiting our neighbors and catching on their needs and seeing if we could be of not only prayer help, but spiritual help. And Aaliyah, would you come and share where we are and what may be in the future?
So during the door-to-door evangelism outreach, we would literally go out and share the gospel with the neighbors within this neighborhood. And the way Stephen had it organized I thought it was brilliant because he had different zones. He wanted to reach those closest to the church. And because we care about our neighbors, not just because the Bible tells us to, but God really puts it in our hearts. So we would have different zones that we would all go to, and then once we covered that zone, we would slowly start to branch out and reach other zones in the neighborhood. Not only that, but he mapped it out perfectly, and he had every single address, and we would document, we would write notes, we would write their names, what the conversations were like, if they had a positive response to the gospel or a negative response, opportunities for discipleship, which I really enjoyed those. Those were always, I think anybody who does it, those are always our favorites, the ones we're able to go back to and try to build a bond there and, moving past sharing the gospel, but just seeing that growth and talking to them what growth is like. And the sanctification process really is a beautiful thing. Me, myself, I was a very slow learner. Like, I learned about Christ when I was 10. It wasn't until my mid-30s and I really started to take it seriously. We did have a method that we used. It was the Ray Comfort method. So when we would go to these houses, we would talk to them and tell them we're from the church and we just want to get to know our neighbors, and we care about our neighbors, care about how they're doing, but more importantly, we care about their spiritual health. And we ask them, do you mind if we ask you a spiritual question? And almost every single time, 9 times out of 10, they'd say yes. I didn't think that we'd get a whole lot of yeses. My first time doing it, I was terrified. I was so scared. I was really timid. I just made myself do it. And it was a really amazing experience. And the spiritual question we asked them is, where do you think you're going to go when you die? And most of the time, a lot of people would say heaven. And we would ask them, okay, on what grounds do you think you would get to heaven? And they would always, most of the time, they'd say, because I'm a good person. And then we would bring them to the 10 Commandments as an example, and we would go through some of them that we know that we've all done, not coming from a place of hypocrisy, but we've all told a lie to our parents when we were young, and we've all stolen something at some point, even if it's downloaded music. And So we would ask them these questions, and then they would realize, yeah, I've done that. And then we would tell them, so you said you're a thief, a liar, and an adulterer, because we'd bring up lust. And they're like, so do you still think you're a good person? And that, it gets them to see why they need the gospel. It gets them to see that nobody's perfect, which is why we need Christ. The gospel would not be as beautiful if it weren't for how undeserving we are of it, and the fact that Jesus, who knew no sin, became sin for us. And one of the things about this ministry is that we don't really see the fruit of it most of the time, because we're spreading seed. We're out there spreading seed, and we trust God to water the seed. He is sending us, and we trust and know that He will send other people to water that seed. Sometimes maybe not till years down the road, but I used to be a little discouraged because I had done it for about 3 years, and in those 3 years, we had about 10 people, roughly, of the hundreds of people we talked to. We had about 10 come to our church who had visited, but none that actually stuck around. And I was very fortunate to have one who accepted Christ, but at the same time, you don't know where that went from there. And I was with my brother. It was his first time ever going. I asked him to come with me, and it was a young man. He was 16 years old, and you can tell he kind of knew a little bit about the Bible, because when we asked him, when you go to heaven, who do you think you're going to see at the pearly gates? And he goes, St. Peter? And we're like, no, not St. Peter. But you could tell he had heard a little bit. And but he never went to church, didn't have a Bible, and we shared the gospel with him. And he wanted to accept Christ as his Savior, and he wanted to repent, and he wanted to change his life. So we prayed with him. And we were praying. We didn't ask him to pray, but when my brother and I and Galen, he was with us as well, when we all got done praying, this young kid started praying as well, and he prayed for his sister, which made me cry, because I was with my brother. He's my favorite person in the whole world, and here's this young man who accepted Christ, and his very first prayer was for his sister, and that she would come to know him, and that she would repent and believe and would want to live to glorify God. It was beautiful, but at the same time, we went back, and he did tell us he was going to be moving, and he was going to be moving out of state, so we weren't able to touch base with him again. I think about that young man all the time, and I pray for him daily. That's the one time that I was able to see a little bit of fruit, but most of this we won't see the fruit of, because we're not necessarily creating relationships. We're trying very hard to touch base and go back. But with that being said, the new program we have, Chris Weathers, is going to be leading it. And right now he's starting a new evangelism class, and he wants to put the relationship into it. So he wants it to be more than simply spreading seed. He wants to have more of an outreach, a relationship, a closeness. I'm excited to see how that's going to work. And so the class just started. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to trying a different method, which from the sounds of it, it's not necessarily a method. We're just going to be led by the Spirit and see how things go. We've been listening to a lot of Paul Washer, who I love. He's brilliant and very inspiring. And we've been learning a lot from that class. So as far as this ministry goes, again, it's the seeds that are planted, we won't know if they take root or not. But one of my favorite quotes that keeps me going is, sometime the seeds that you plant will lie under the earth until you do, and then take root. So there are times we won't see the fruit within our lifetime, but we trust God with that. And one thing that inspired me from Fox's Book of the Martyrs was this man, some missionaries came to his house to share the gospel. He didn't want anything to do with it. He slammed the door in their face, told them to leave. They left a Bible on his doorstep. And he ended up picking it up and reading it. And a year later, went to seminary. And shortly after that, started a church. I don't remember what country this was in, but it was a church that was, it was a country that was facing heavy persecution. And when he was killed, he was clutching that Bible, the very same Bible that they left on his doorstep, riddled with bullets and blood. But those two men have no idea that the 2-minute conversation of them trying to share the gospel and leaving that Bible, they had no idea what happened to that man. And an entire church of a little bit less than 100 people came to know Christ because of a Bible that they had left. And that has encouraged me a whole lot. So as far as the fruit, again, I trust God with that, but I can definitely attest to the fruit that it has had in my life. It is life-changing going out and sharing the gospel. We're told to do it in Scripture. We try our best to do it in our day-to-day lives. But going out and talking to strangers, as scary as it may be, I was terrified, and it has emboldened me so much. And now it's changed my life. At work, you can't get me to stop talking about Jesus. And you find ways to bring it up in your day-to-day conversations. It just comes up so naturally now. Not only that, but my children, they come along with me when we do door-to-door evangelism, and they pray the entire time Galen and I were speaking, or Stephen and I were speaking, my daughters would be there and they would be praying. And they are very devout prayer warriors. And when we drive by those houses, they're like, let's remember to pray for Angry Joe. He needs some prayers. And that wasn't his real name, just in case he's watching. But so don't correct me, Lydia. We can't say his real name. But they do remember these people and they care about them. And another thing is they see some of the different types of soil that Jesus was talking about. And not only that, but they get to experience how to conduct yourself when facing persecution. Granted, the persecution we experience is the mildest persecution. Stephen and I had a guy right up the street, like with a huge smile on his face, telling us that we were idiots and brainwashed. And that's nothing compared to heavy persecution. But my children and I, we've learned how to handle that with grace. And so even though some of the fruit I might not see within this lifetime, I can see the fruit that it's had in my life and in my children's life. And please continue to pray for this ministry. Pray that God sends more workers into the field, that more people would want to take this class, and that more people would be encouraged to come and to share the gospel, and that hearts would be open to receive the good news. Thank you.
Well, another area that sometimes you think it doesn't happen anymore is when we have the opportunity to actually have public school children released to hear the good news. And Bev, why don't you come and tell us what's happening?
This isn't my forte, speaking in front of adults. I could talk to children for hours. So bear with me. I wrote out what I wanted to share today, and Alex asked me just to share briefly the outreach that Mary Walker and I are doing in the public schools. Before I begin, I want you to know that our outreach isn't sponsored by the church, but we want to share it with you and give you the opportunity of maybe helping in some way. A year and a half ago, we began after school with CEF up at President's. And we weren't able to do an after school club up there, but we were able to meet here in the church. And we only had about 10 students. We never could get more than that. And 3 of those families were from the church here. So it wasn't disappointing because we knew we were making a difference. But as both of us prayed, I think we wanted to try more of an outreach. As we sought the Lord, I came across an article in a magazine that talked about homeschool meeting and encouraging in a public school. So from that, the Lord continued to encourage me that there must be another avenue. So weeks went by, weeks and weeks. It seemed like it was taking so long to find an answer. So Jackie Tim, out of the blue, mentioned that she was helping with a group after school at the middle school, and 70 students were involved, 70. And it was through FCA, which you all know is Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And so our hearts just were thrilled that this was happening in the middle school. And let me see, I don't want to get jarred. And the teacher that was in charge was a instructor from the school, and she was able to draw in people that could teach anything to the children or tell them anything. And so that was exciting to us also. Then we discovered, in addition to the middle school, there was a high school group. So through FCA, these are called huddles. These are huddles. And so we thought, well, maybe we could do something like that in the elementary. Because of this article that I had read a year earlier, I thought, could be a possibility. So as she and I met, we were able to get in touch with the area director in Skagit, and his name is Matt Geltner, and he is good friends with the missionaries we support from here, Devin and Nicole Macau. And he's just wonderful, such a great administrator. And he was able to get us in touch with the East Coast director, who back there they've developed curriculum for this program for elementary. And so it's downloaded online, and we are able to access that. So the next step is when the children come into, like, the middle school, they are taught, and then they move up into the high school, and the high school comes down to mentor to middle school, and now in this case, middle school will come down and mentor to elementary. So we're more of, after we begin the initial instruction, we're more of just supervising, and really the students take over. So that was another thrilling thing that Mary and I discovered too, that the children are really involved, going up or down. Any student is welcome, and the premise is character building. FCA, I already told you that. Let's see. I want to let you know too that Devin and Nicole are the FCA reps for North Central Washington. Okay, Mary and I had that meeting with the director back east online, and Matt, the Northwest director, and they were also excited that we would be able possibly to be introduced into the elementary school. Just so you have a little bit of background, this curriculum and program is huge back east. It's so foreign here for the state of Washington, but back there they have so many clubs. And I didn't get the exact years, but between 10 and 15 years is when they have been in the elementary schools. Just a quick note, Aaliyah mentioned about fruit. The area coordinator back east mentioned that she had a 4th grader who is now teaching in college, FCA. So that really encouraged us. All right. I originally, as Mary and I met, we thought that Kent Prairie would be the school to start with. There's a teacher there who attended here, and she wanted to be involved. And so as I called and asked for a meeting with the principal, quite a few times, left messages and texts, and I never got a response. So as we prayed about it, we decided to go to another school. And I'm sure that the principal just wasn't familiar at all with this type of club. I'm sure they have other clubs at the school, but maybe down the road, this might be a possibility to be at Kent Prairie. So I contacted Eagle Creek, and we are waiting for a response. Initially, what happens is you meet with the principal and lay out your structure and everything. And I know these other schools know about the middle school program and the high school program. So it's not that they're not familiar with it. It's just not something that's done here in the elementary school. So we have our team together. We have people that have asked to help. As the prayers go out, we have Bibles provided already to hand out. That's what they've done at the middle school already. We have prizes, incentives, and we are excited. We have people in the community that have already volunteered, and we believe it's going to, in God's timing, be a wonderful outreach, not only for Mary and I, but possibly here in the church too. We are before the Lord coveting your prayers, and if in the future you feel you might want to volunteer in any area, because as we look at it, we're thinking possibly even another school. After one is established, then they'll see the benefit, because all of this is character building for the children, and that's how it is approached. Let's see. We feel sky's the limit with Christ, and the seeds that are planted, we aren't going to be able to know the result, like Aaliyah had mentioned. Maybe we won't, but like this 4th grader, the area director back east, who's now teaching in college, we know that our efforts for Christ won't be in vain. Thank you.
Firmly Awana stands, right? Okay, guess what's next? Jeannie, come and help us here.
Discipleship platform and is typically used in a church's midweek ministry. Awana Clubs has curriculum that ranges from 2 years old to 18 years old. Specific ages are grouped together and known as clubs. These age groups or clubs have their own curriculum, themes, and characters. Each club also has their own uniforms, awards, and games if a church desires to utilize these resources. Awana Clubs can be adapted to fit a church's needs and isn't locked into a specific model. While Awana Clubs are flexible, most ministries involve a rotation through 3 segments. Large group, where engaging lessons are taught and anything that brings growth as a whole is encouraged. Small group, where prayer, discussion, and scripture memory take place. And interactive time, where fun is had and friendships are formed. You can learn more about the specifics of these segments and clubs at awana.org.
I love serving in Awana, but I do not like talking in front of adults either, so just bear with me. So our Awana program, my husband and I have overseen it for the last 5 years, and it has been awesome to see the growth we've had in it. When we first started, we had like 100 to like 120 kids. We've already seen over 200 kids this year participate in our club. When we started off, we had like 180 kids registered. I remember texting Hans, the number just kept going up, and it's really awesome to see that growth. Awana takes a lot of volunteers, and we do run pretty much like 50 volunteers on a regular night with 150 kids. The majority of the volunteers come from this church. We do have some volunteers from other churches, but yeah, Awana has really flourished. To where we've even so our cubbies, which is 3s and 4s, we have 26 kids in that class, and that is cut off because that is as much as our space will handle. Our Sparky group this year has like 50 kids, and if you were to come on a Wednesday night for an hour, they take over this whole sanctuary for game time and handbook time. Our TNT program, when we started, we averaged like 25 kids. They average 50 to 60 kids a night. John Hunsucker has served in that group for a while. I think he would testify that group has just really flourished, and that's because kids from younger groups are sticking with the program, and so we've seen huge growth. Last year we graduated like 20 to 25 kids from our Sparky program into our TNT program. But yeah, it's pretty awesome to see it grow. So with Awana, there's between 85 and 90 families through clubbers that are impacted. And yeah, we just continue to grow and burst at the seams. But it's a good problem to have, to not have enough space. So we've got creative on how we can allow more clubbers to come. I don't have a whole lot to say on that, but you could just really be praying for our leaders and our clubbers. If you can't serve, prayer is always a huge way that you can join us in that. If anybody has any questions, I'd answer questions. If not, I have a video from our last year that kind of shows our last year. We do fun theme nights throughout the year. The kids compete in the Awana Grand Prix, which we just did and had over 100 clubbers and a few parents and leaders compete in that. In that, we make it a whole family event, so all the families that came heard the gospel presented to them. Jim Dewey did it for us this year. We have 20 to 30 kids who are going to be participating in our Awana Games coming up in March, and that's just another activity for kids to do, and they also hear the gospel through that. So it's pretty exciting to be part of. I do a lot of just the background stuff. Our leaders are with the kids. So anyways, yeah, just be praying for us as we continue to grow our ministry. So that's all I have to say. If you'll play that last video.
Yeah, Thank you, Jeannie. I had the privilege, my parents were involved for like 35, 40 years when we started over at Lake Kai, at Camp Kai, and then finally moved here and so forth. And I had a little bit of time at TNT and then Trek director for a little while. And the thing that bothered me the most was not having leaders enough that you could actually talk a lot with the kids in small group. It seemed like everything, especially with TNT, saying so many verses with so many kids, you don't have time to find out where are you at and stuff like that. Leaders can be a significant input in their life. So if you have some time on Wednesday night, come and be involved. Okay? So this whole morning was nothing more than showing where we can be involved in outreach. We don't have to have big diplomas. We don't have to have some kind of a calling or anything else. We have time on our hands that we can dedicate to the work of Jesus Christ in little kids' lives or adult lives, hurting lives, like with Care Medical and all. So thank you. We'll be dismissed and grab some coffee, and we'll be getting ready for our time of worship and giving and in song and a presentation by Mark Rittersbach. So thank you.